My name is Libby Davis, and I've had the honor of teaching every week regarding the Omer season. And we've so far talked about harvesting, down on the bottom, your left, then the threshing with the cane, the winnowing is way up in the corner, and we're going over to the left-hand corner, your right-hand corner rather. And today is heating, getting heated with the agency of fire. Now, I thought it was very interesting that we had a song that talks about fire. I was very careful about that verse. We'll find out. Now, there's a lot in the Bible about heating and fire. So we're going to finish this action next week. Last Sabbath, we ended with the Lord's eyes on you as you lay at his feet, looking up at him, wondering what was going to happen next. Well, at this point, the priest sorted the seeds for the stray pieces of chaff, sticks, and pebbles, because only the seeds were going to be saved and kept. The farmers would do the same. Then they divided their seed for different uses. Some seeds were set aside for planting next year. Some were used for eating or to make into flour, and others were put aside to plant next year. Or the chaff would be gathered even, and it could be thrown in a fire, or it could be used to get a fire started. It could also be used with clay and water and make building material. You could even gather the chaff and make it into a pillow. So we have 5 questions that we're going to talk about in this study. What's the Lord's agency? Remember the word agency. What was the Lord's agency in this action? What happened to grain in the biblical day? What happened to Yeshua in his day? And what else is fire used for? And the last one, what about you? As a warning, I will reiterate, I'm very careful when I sing a song asking for the fire of God. Now, maybe you will change too. All right, let's go. Gold. Gold in Strong's is Hebrews number 2091, and it means to shimmer, or colored as olive oil, while silver is the Hebrew word 3701, and it's seen as a pale color. That's basically what silver is called. But what does the Bible say about these metals? Look at Job 23:10. Job 23:10 says, "When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold." Psalm 66:10, "Thou hast tried us as silver is tried." Zechariah 13:9, "And will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried." Clearly, the Lord connects people with you. He says that he's going to try or refine you in the same way as gold and silver. So we want to look at how that was done. We're going to look very closely. The word refine is the Hebrew word 6884. It means to fuse, cast, melt, pure, purge away, or try. This is the Lord's plan. He wants to cast you in his image. He wants to fuse you to him. And he wants to make you pure by purging all unholiness away. Isaiah 1:25, "And I will turn my hand upon thee and purely purge away thy dross and take away all thy tin." This is my favorite question. Why does he want to do this? And why does it have to be done this way? So read with me what the Amplified says in Matthew 5:16. Ready? Let your light so shine before men that they may see your moral excellence and your praiseworthy, noble, and good deeds, and recognize and honor and praise and glorify your Father who is in heaven. The Amplified opens it quite deeply and widely. Go on, let's continue together. This is the Amplified 1 Peter 1:7, just part A. So that the genuineness of your faith may be tested, which is infinitely more precious than the perishable gold, which is tested and purified by fire. Anybody ready? Fire. Go ahead. Amplified version, James 1:12. Blessed, happy to be envied is the man who is patient under trial and stands up under temptation. For when he has stood the test and been approved, he will receive the victor's crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. That ties in with what Giovanni was saying. It goes back to his heart, love. Therefore, being tried is rewarded with crowns, and it's a sign that you are loved by the Lord. Being tried is a sign that you are loved. It's also the purpose of his fire. So when you are in the Lord's fire, and it will help you if you put this truth before you, and I know we have people who are in fire now, that the fire is necessary to prove your faith and make you in the Lord's image. The purpose of the fire. I need, then point 2 is referring to the question. But gold and silver can dim. They're not always perfect. They're not always clean. Lamentations 4:1 says, how is the gold become dim? James 5:3 says, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. That's powerful. A witness against you. This happens to gold and silver. What about you? What about me? Will I rust? Revelation 3:5 says that he that overcometh, I will not blot out his name out of the book of life. So beware. If the Lord says that he will not blot out the overcomer, what's going to happen to the people who don't overcome? Right. If you don't overcome that trial, that fire, and all the other things that we're talking about this season, all right? I need my assistants to come up. Delea and, yes. We don't have another table, so I'm going to improvise. All right, you're going to hold up. You're going to stand up there. You hold up that tray. In a minute, I'll give you this, okay? Go ahead. They're going to assist me. Someday, I hope to have a true instrument to show you. So I've created this, and it's definitely not perfect. All right. Let's see. Some grain is parched by fire, and then it was eaten. The seeds are gathered and spread in a perforated pan with holes. Now, these holes are too big, so I'm trying to make them smaller. A perforated pan. It's not easy to find. I've looked and looked and looked. So kind of bear with me, okay? Perforated pan. The seeds were gathered and spread in that pan, but the holes have to be just large enough for the hot air to circulate through, and no seeds can fall through those holes. The pan is then put over a fire. so that the heated air, not the flames, can reach through. Only the heated air. This is how they were parched. The air is actually fueling the fire, correct? Oxygen is needed to keep that fire going. If the air is cut off, the fire will stop. But until then, it gets hotter and stronger, and it causes that hot air to rise through the holes and circulate around the seeds. The circulation will keep the seeds from popping out. If you don't have those holes, that pan gets hot. Those seeds are popping, okay? Then when they are popping, they fall into the fire and are consumed. That was the song we were singing. What happens to you when you're over the fire? 1 Peter 4:12 says, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you." Now you remember when we talked about winnowing, that fire early in the morning was very gentle, and it just blew and separated. Now this fire is not, this air is different. In the spiritual, the fire becomes your trial. It is the agency of the Lord. But the Lord's hand becomes this pan. It's between you, because you're the seed. That pan is between you and that hot fire. The ruach is the air. The ruach is the wind, right? It is the air, and it's causing your distress because it feeds that trial. But at the same time, the ruach is the comforter. Even if you're not aware of that ruach in your trial, he is there. He never leaves you alone. All seems hopeless until the ruach, or that hot air, finally rises and it comes through these holes and it surrounds you in the hot trial. The ruach will use the word, gatherings, worship, tambourines, shofars, prayer, family, and friends to encourage and comfort you in your fiery trial. But you have to recognize the ruach. The ruach will dispense the mercy and the grace of the Lord, and at the same time guards you from getting out of that trial. If the ruach, if the air stops, that fire stops, but if the air doesn't go through, he's not there to comfort. He has to come through. The Lord provides that for you. The ruach is circulating around and comforting you as you are being refined in the trial that the Lord has picked especially for you. It's just designed for you, not for somebody else. The ruach's presence will get stronger as your trial intensifies. But without his presence, you would be destroyed by the Lord's purpose. So it's the Lord's love, the ruach, that surrounds you in your trial. And as we saw back in the harvesting and in the threshing and the winnowing, the Lord never plans to leave or forsake you. His hand will be placed between you and that fire. He is there. He never will leave you. Don't jump out of that pan like popcorn. Don't jump out of the fiery trial. Don't run away from it. Never. The only way you escape is to fall into the fire. You want the Lord and you want the Comforter there. So, concentrate on the Lord's truth until your trial is extinguished. When the Lord tells the ruach, stop. Do not continue. No more adding fuel to that trial. Stop. You must persevere, you must hold on, and you must overcome. The step in preparing the grain is the same as the Lord prepares his bride. It is a very, very exacting one. It has to be just right. It cannot be too hot or too long. And how many times do we say, Lord, I've had enough. I can't handle anymore. But it doesn't stop, does it? Because only he knows how much is needed. So, are there different kinds of fire or heat? And what type of fire are we crying for when we have that hot, hot air? Thank you, girls. Just take it to the back, will you? Thank you. All right. Let's look at the wider meanings that are found in Webster's 1940 dictionary for these common words of parch, scorch, and consume. Parch emphasizes the idea of drying or shriveling. Scorch means to burn it superficially, to heat it so to change the color and the texture, but it's not consumed. A parched field will return to life with the proper water and light. A scorched item can be fixed. You can scratch off all the black from that piece of toast and still eat it. Yeah, I've had a dress that got scorched right here, and I just found another piece of fabric and covered it up. Works. You can adjust, okay? But the word consume, what does it mean? To vanish, terminate, or perish. It's just like the burnt offering on the altar. It had to be totally consumed. The parched grain was necessary because it made a food staple. In Joshua 5:11, it says that in the first month they ate parched grain before Pesach. In Ruth 2:14, Boaz fed Ruth parched grain. And in 1 Samuel 17:17, David took parched grain out to his brothers. The parched, preserved seeds feed hungry people between harvests, just as you feed other people. There are many people out there who are faint and weary, but when you testify about the test, the trial that you are finishing or you finished already, and you testify, it makes a difference. That is when you are tested and you give the Lord the glory. That's when he's proved. But if you don't open your mouth, he is not proved. Webster defines the word proved this way: to ascertain or establish the genuineness or the validity of, to verify. When you have a testimony of the fiery trial that strengthened you as you endured for the Lord's glory, then you bring hope. You bring encouragement and life to other people. Just as the parched seeds brought life to others between the harvests. It's necessary. That's part of his purpose for you going through that fiery trial. It's not just for you. It's for him. Whose hand are you in when you're in that fiery trial? Who's letting that trial continue after you've been crying out to him? Help me, get me out of this. Fix it. Stop it. Who is in charge? The master of you, the master of your universe. In conclusion, I ask you to feel the Ruach comforting and encouraging you to stay in the Lord's hand as you are in the heat of the trial that he designed just for you, because he loves you. That's all. We'll talk more about this valley low testimony next week That's just halfway. All right? Please stand and we will count the Omer. It's a pretty heavy lesson today, isn't it? Very, very, but it gets better. All right. Ready? We're all set. Go ahead. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sifarat ha-omer. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose commandments add holiness to our lives and who gives us the command of counting the Omer. Today is 21 days, which is 3 weeks and no days of the counting of the Omer. Thank you. We'll see you next week.